Straight Talk today. This is Sean Henry. I'll be working with Don Woodward, our presenter today. As you know, Straight Talk is a 20-minute engineering-led discussion. We hope to give you some good rules of thumb about what's going on out there in the marketplace today. No marketing materials involved. There will be no questions and answers because this is only 20 minutes, but we do provide an email address, straighttalkqa@syscomtechnologies.com. If you know your account executive, feel free to give them a buzz either if you have additional questions or you'd like to go deeper. We'll certainly get the right engineering resource on the line with you. So please provide any feedback that you have, and we'll go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to turn it over to Don Woodward. Thank you for attending today.
All right, thank you, Sean. So this morning, good morning, everyone. This morning we'll be talking about Veeam version 8, Backup and Replications Innovations, and specifically, we're going to talk about how we can deliver backup appliance life support. So if you're using some type of older appliance, or even if you're using the ExaGrid, today you can augment that with the additional newer ExaGrids, and there's some new features with the ExaGrid in version 8 that we'll talk about today. We can also utilize the Amazon Storage Gateway, for example, to get your backups off-site, even if you're storing them on an ExaGrid, regular storage, or wherever. Then we're going to talk about ultra-fast backup from NetApp snapshots and how those can be leveraged, for example, throughout the day to augment your nightly backups and also to expedite or speed up your snapshotting during the regular backup cycle. But we'll specifically look at how you could utilize those NetApp snapshots throughout the day to restore Exchange individual items, Active Directory individual items, SharePoint individual items, or SQL individual items. And then finally, I picked out a couple of features which some of our end users are making good use of to talk about them. So we'll move on and talk about the backup appliance life support. Veeam has added new support for the ExaGrid in version 8. They've also added some new support for the data domain. If you happen to have a data domain, most of our customers are ExaGrid customers. And then they've had the SureStore HP support for quite a while. So what that allows you to do now with the new ExaGrid support is much faster communications than the old CIF shares that you were using with Veeam on the ExaGrids. And also, you can now, there's landing zone improvements for all of your Veeam operations. And you can also perform your synthetic full backups on the ExaGrid landing space, whereas in the past, that was something you didn't necessarily want to do because there was a lot of overhead involved with that on the server. Now all that is offloaded to the ExaGrid, and so therefore it's much, much faster. If you do have the older style CIF shares set up and you want to take advantage of the new CIFs, there is a new version of the ExaGrid firmware that is a companion version with version 8, and you'll be able to convert those over on the ExaGrid side. So this is a typical ExaGrid architecture for those of you who are not familiar with the ExaGrid. Basically, your Veeam server backs up a local copy to your ExaGrids, and then the ExaGrid has replication capabilities, but before it's replicated, it's deduped and compressed and added to the local storage side, and then it'll be replicated if you choose to replicate that share over to a remote ExaGrid. And that replication is automatic. You don't have to set up any jobs in Veeam for that replication to happen. So this gets your 3-2-1 rule, basically having 3 copies of your data. You got your one on-site regular production data, then you've got your backup copy on your local ExaGrid, and you've got your 3rd copy on your remote ExaGrid. So here's a look at the ExaGrid interface, again, for you guys who are not familiar with the ExaGrid. The ExaGrid now up at the top shows up as a full member. It's no longer just a CIF share out there like a backup repository 1 or 2 that I've got there. And then there's an ExaGrid job down at the bottom, looks like any other job. Sorry, this is the screen with the ExaGrid interface. So here's your landing zone. That's where your backups are are initially landed, and then they go into the retention space. All right, so another option for our customers, if they want to, they can utilize, we can set up Amazon Web Services for you. So Amazon Web Services has a storage gateway appliance, which we can download to your system. There's a small monthly charge for having the appliance, and then there's a charge for storing the data in Amazon. So as you see over here from left to right, you've got your backup servers. There's a nice fuzzy mount off of the storage gateway, which presents your storage to your, basically the storage that you're going to put your data on. It presents that storage to your Veeam server. And there are two different configurations of that storage, which is presented to your local machine. There's the gateway cached volume and the gateway stored volume. The difference between those two, the gateway cached, let's say for example you have a terabyte worth of data, you're going to need to have approximately 20% of that, so 200 gig local you would need to store that. The most recent data would be cached in that 200 gig, and the rest would be, all the data is stored as a copy up in Amazon in the S3 service. If you have the gateway stored version, you'd need the whole 1 terabyte local. So the cached version allows you to keep just the most recent copies local, and that's pretty sufficient for most people. What we find, is a lot of people utilize this as basically a tertiary storage. So they'll store their data on regular storage, either be Exagrid or some other device, and then they'll send a copy of it off to Amazon using the copy job. So that's what we set up a lot of there. So how has this helped our customers? Basically, it can augment your Exagrid deployment. If you are out of space on your Exagrid, or if you don't have a second Exagrid, a lot of customers don't have a second site, so they have one Exagrid, and the Exagrid is very good at deduping and compressing that, but they want a third copy off-site. So we can utilize the Amazon Web Services storage gateway to get that off-site. One of our big customers, they've got about 30 terabytes worth of data on-site, storing it on a Dell older storage array. And what we've done with it is we've augmented that with the Amazon Storage Gateway by making a second copy out to Amazon through the Storage Gateway. We can also utilize these for remote office backups. So if you have a remote office out there, has maybe VMware in it, today maybe you have a tape drive out there and you have a receptionist or somebody changing a tape out there at the remote off-site. Maybe they're taking those tapes home and every night or something like that. Well, you can get rid of that tape drive out there, and we can put in a storage gateway at your remote office and send those backups to the cloud. So you can, and then basically if something happens to one of the remote offices, then you can mount those backups off on another storage gateway, maybe say at your main office, and bring up the remote office VMs. So that's very useful. That's how our customers, we've helped them use this. Next, let's move into the NetApp backups from snapshots. So there's a couple of different options here with the NetApp. Number one, you can utilize the NetApp snapshotting capabilities to send a copy to your backup repository using the Veeam software. What it does is, if you've ever looked at Veeam when it's backing up, you'll see it does a VMware snapshot, and so the NetApp snapshotting capability integrates very well with the Veeam software in version 8, the new feature. And what it does is it speeds up those snapshots by actually utilizing the NetApp snapshot rather than the VMware snapshot. So the snapshots happen much quicker. You can also send a second copy off to the SnapVault and SnapMirror with this, as well as your backup repository. Again, the 3-2-1 backup rule, you're going to have 3 copies of your data there. Additionally, you can actually take advantage or leverage the NetApp snapshots themselves. So if you have a VMFS volume that's on your NetApp, you can set up the NetApp snapshotting capability throughout the day. And in the case of our lab, I've set up 6 snapshots every hour, one every hour. It keeps 6 snapshots, and then it keeps a nightly copy of the snapshots each day. So I've got those snapshots available to me throughout the day if I need to do a quick backup. So let's talk about how that's done here. So here we're on our net. There's a new item under the Veeam backup and replication called storage infrastructure, where your NetApp will show up. And here it sees both of our NetApp heads in our lab. If we go on down and open that a little further, then we can actually look at the snapshots on the individual volumes that it sees on those NetApps. So if you look there, I can also create a manual snapshot right now. So let's say I was going to do something with one of these VMs and I needed to make a snapshot of it in case something happened while I was doing that, so I can create one here. These snapshots over here are the hourly snapshots I talked about on the right. As you can see, those are automatic. They're not, you don't have to have a job even set up in Veeam to do this or take advantage of these. So again, these would augment your nightly backups. So you would continue to take your nightly backups, but for those of you who operate during the day and want to be able to restore items, and we'll show in a minute how you could do that from individual items, you can utilize this with that. So here we've got our jobs. If we go here and look at the snapshots under the backup infrastructure, again, this is a new item. If you've integrated your NetApp with your Veeam server, you'll see this item appear. Basically, you can take advantage of those, so you can see the number of restore points that I have available under those. I'm going to pick an Active Directory server here, and I could either do an instant VM recovery, I could restore guest files from it, or I could restore application items from it. So I'm going to pretend like this morning we had an employee who turned in their resignation and basically said they were leaving, and we've deleted them. So those of you who have had that happen know how hard it is to get that back. The permissions, it's impossible, really. But with Veeam, you can restore that user's login instantly. All the permissions will come back. So here, we're going to move on, and we're going to tell, again, I said you could use Active Directory, Exchange, SharePoint, or SQL. We're going to pick the Active Directory one. We know this is an Active Directory. We're going to also, here's the snapshots choices that it gives us. So it gives us a choice of our snapshots. We're going to pick the most recent one there. Okay, and then we're going to give some resources here. I've already pre-filled those in here in the slide. It's going to go through and it's going to mount that backup. And eventually it's going to come up in the Veeam Explorer for Active Directory. And this looks much like you would see in Active Directory, right? Those of you familiar with Active Directory, you see here this is the same folder structure, file structure, almost looks like Active Directory users and computers. So you can go through and pick out an individual item that you wanted to restore. So you could, if you had a user that you had deleted earlier, you can, or a computer that you had deleted earlier, anything out of Active Directory you can restore. Same thing is true with Exchange. If you have Exchange, you can go through, you can pick out individual items and restore them either to the location they were found in, or you can export them to a PST file. Same thing with SharePoint. This is certainly very important. SharePoint is program that's difficult to restore from. Typically, without this individual item restore, in order to restore a SharePoint item, you'd have to basically restore the entire application out of SharePoint and then pull the items out, export them out, and then import them into your other SharePoint. With this, you can put them right back where they were if you had deleted them. Same thing true with SQL here. You can restore these back to the original item. You can go back to points in time. You can restore them on another server. You can put them in a folder somewhere. So all of those combined with the NetApp snapshots give you some real flexibility throughout the day to be able to restore items. Again, you're going to keep your regular nightly backups, but you're going to augment those with the snapshot capability throughout the day. So how has this helped our customers? Definitely reduces the snapshot times in VMware. If you're familiar with Veeam, you know that the snapshots can stay open a long time. I mean, I've had backups last 20-something hours or more on the first time full backup, and those snapshots are kept that entire time, which means you're taking a performance hit for that snapshot during those 20 hours. With the NetApp snapshot capability integrated in, you're not going to be taking that hit that long. It's going to clear very quickly because it's going to use the NetApp snapshot. Second item here, frequent periodic backups during the day. Definitely useful for programs like Exchange, SharePoint, Active Directory. Could also be utilized with a file server too, though. So, for example, throughout the day, people are adding files to your file server, and certainly those, if you're just doing backups nightly, you're not going to get those backed up until the evening. So with the snapshotting capability, you're going to have a backup of those periodically. So those augment your backup. They're not a replacement for your backup, ever. So let's look at two of the newer features with Veeam 8. Lots of new features in Veeam 8. I think there's 250 or so of them. One of the big ones for our customers was end-to-end encryption. So Veeam 8 does have that capability. If you have requirements for encryption, then Veeam 8 has that. They also have lost password protection. If you do encrypt your data, you can still get it back if you lose your password. There's ways to do that. And then the last one would be backup I/O control. And this is a biggie for a lot of our customers. As we know, when you're doing your backups, it's putting a load on your IOPS and on your data stores during that backup. We've had customers who have even had problems with the SAN during their backups because it does put such a load. So now Veeam 8 can actually, because Veeam 8 can take the data as fast as the SAN will try to give it. So now you can put some metrics around it and stop them from going over a particular millisecond rating for your data store. You can throttle it back. And then, of course, the parallel processing has been there for several releases now, so I think since version 7. But storage latency control is definitely a big one. I think that's it for us today. The next steps, if you do have any questions, as Sean said, we can get an appropriate engineer to give you a call back, and we'd love to give you a one-on-one demo of the NetApp snapshots. I couldn't give a live demo here, obviously, because of time, but we can definitely show you how that works if you'd like to see it. So that's it for me.
All right. So again, thank you, Don. That was excellent. Hope everybody got something out of that today. If you have questions, feedback, or you'd like to, ask any more questions or get some more deeper dive with Don Woodward on this subject today, please send an email to straighttalkqa@syscomtechnologies.com. If you already have an account rep, you can certainly email them and get Don engaged with you and your team. Something new that we've added recently, and I want to make sure everybody aware, is we're actually recording these seminars and we're posting them out on YouTube, but you have to have the unique URL to go out there to actually view them. So we're not making them broadly available, but you can either get those again by sending a request to have that link through the Straight Talk QA, or again through your rep, or you can go on our website, syscomtechnologies.com, and request access to seeing what we've done in the past on these Straight Talks and see if any of those are something you'd be interested in sitting there and watching. So if you miss them, we are posting them and making them available. So feel free to send that out to your team if they'd like to view any of these Straight Talk webinars. So again, thank you for attending, and look forward to having you on our one this afternoon at 2 o'clock on migration. Thank you.